Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
And also by the Conscious Marketing for Yoga Teachers Workshop with Tristan Katz. Connected Yoga Teachers, if you are wanting to learn more about aligning your marketing with your yoga, this is the workshop to sign up for. I am going to be learning right alongside you from Tristan. They are amazing at the work that they do in this world. And also, we have scholarships for anyone who needs one. So to attend live or check out the on-demand replay, visit theconnectedyogateacher.com and look under trainings and events. Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I use she, her pronouns, and a random fact about me. My very first car was a Ford Escort. It was tan color, and wow, I absolutely loved that car, probably because of the freedom it gave me. My dad actually bought the car for me so that I could drive to college. Everything else was up to me in terms of expenses, but that $1,000 that he gave me for that car was money well spent. I think that car lasted me for 3 years. It was definitely over 2 years, and it barely lasted for 3. I learned a lot about engine troubles with that little car, and at one point I remember learning how to pour gas down the carburetor when the car would quit on the side of the road. I do not suggest doing this now. I really don't know that much about cars, but someone told me that would get me going, and it did work in a pinch. I would love to hear from you, Connected Yoga Teachers. What was your first vehicle, and what do you remember about it? If you want to send me a voice message, I love those. You can over at the connectedyogateacher.com website, and you'll see the button on the right-hand side. Let's dive into today's podcast. I'm also a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, podcaster, and the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. And this podcast was created for you so that each and every week you are connected to the information and inspiration that will support you as you build your unique yoga business. Today is step 4 in our 5 steps to effective content mini-series. And if you have been following along, we are on the home stretch now. Anytime you are feeling stuck about what to say or where to communicate with new or existing yoga students, use these 5 steps. They're meant to be repeated. Honestly, I just went back and looked at a social media strategy of my own this week and thought, oh yeah, I forgot this one step in there, and that's where there's this disconnect. And in each of these 5 steps, there is an action step. I lay it out for you. I encourage you to take that action step, even if it's like the messiest thing you can do. That's really the most important thing, that action step. That's how we actually move forward and get results. We could talk about theory of social media or theory of emails and theory of marketing and communication all day long. But really, if you want the results, you need to step forward, even if it's a baby step, take the action step to get the results. If you're diving right in here at part 4, I would say it's going to make the most sense if you go back and start with part 1 of this 5-part mini-series. And just as a quick recap, just to recap where we've been, step 1 was all about when. When are we creating our content? So we laid out that content commitment. Then in step 2, we talked about why. Why are we doing this content in the first place? And to really outline the goals of why. In step 3, where are you sharing your content was last week. And just a reminder, it's only one platform for right now. One place. Remember that for today. It's very important. And step 4 today is how you will deliver that content. So we're going to talk about video, text, audio, or images as the options. And then next week, we're going to talk about a plan so that you can share, schedule, and repurpose your content. Once all of these other foundations are in place, it's going to get easier. If you like to read the notes, we have them over for you at theconnectedyogateacher.com/235 for this episode. And I'm actually thinking about how to compile all of the notes into some kind of a PDF. I haven't done that yet. That really goes along very well with next week's episode in this repurposing. I thought I'm going to put this content out there for all of you in this podcast, and you better believe that I am going to take this and reshare it in different ways on different platforms. But that's for next week, where we talk about our plan and our resharing. This week, today, is all about step 4, how. My question to you is, where do you feel comfortable right now? Video, text, audio, or images? What jumps out at you right away when I say that? And what do you think would be most helpful to the people that you work with? Video is a great way to connect, but if you're hesitating and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need a fancy camera first, or I need to find a way to edit things and I don't even know about YouTube, I would say, whoa, wait a second. Let's start smaller. Let's think of something that would be easier. For example, if you really thought, I want to try video. I've been doing other things with text and images, and I really want to try video. Start with something simple like a Facebook or an Instagram video where there's no editing, no fancy camera. You just either need your computer or a phone to do it. That's actually how I started doing this podcast. I did not start right with audio. I actually started with something that felt more uncomfortable right away, but it was a quick way before I learned all of the ins and outs of podcasting. It was actually easier to jump on Facebook Live and do a podcast episode each and every week. And I was doing solo episodes then. I was doing live video. I would have my notes with me, and I just threw it out there. And you know what? Some of you who are listening now probably remember those early day videos. Oh my gosh, they're super awkward, but it helped me to get started. So the key right now is to only choose one thing, one way that you are going to share right now. And you can add to this as you go, and it might shift and it might change. You will go back then to step 1, 2, and 3 for each of these additions, or that's going to be the most helpful. That's what I do. So the main action step for today is to decide, how are you going to show up? So last week we chose where, that platform where, but today I want you to choose, is it going to be audio, video, text, or images, or some kind of a combination of a couple of these? Really, you could press pause right now and just do that action step and count it as done. But I want to give you a little more inspiration because we're getting right near the juice of let's create the content. So another key piece of this is to keep all of your content ideas, the brainstorming, the planning, all of the ideas in one location. This might be in a journal or a notebook where you are pen to paper, or it might be on your computer in a Google Doc. It might be in a notes thing on your phone. What is easiest for you? Where can you see all of your notes? The important thing is that you can find it quickly, you can add a note to it, and you can dive in and create your content there. And in order to do that, you have to have marked down your content creation commitment, which was back in step 1. Personally, I love a good Google Doc for this. And I actually just did a live episode where I showed what my Google Doc looks like. I also have a Google Excel spreadsheet that kind of keeps me on track with my call to action and the topic and the date it's being released. So if you want to see that, I'll make sure that we link to the August live that I did. It's a YouTube video. We'll link to that in the show notes. The main thing that I want you to think about today is with step 1, 2, and 3 in mind, what feels like a good fit right now? Where would you be able to start with this without any hesitation? So make sure you write that down if you haven't already. And then let's brainstorm some to get you inspired. So in this moment right now, you might pause the podcast and come back to this part. But if you're ready to grab a pen and a notebook or to grab your computer, let's jot some things down. I'm going to ask you some questions, and these answers probably will get you thinking of that famous question of, what do I post? While you get everything organized, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Schedulicity. And I also need to remind myself to tell you about a really special discount code that they've given to all of our listeners. Let's first hear from the team over at Schedulicity.
Hey Connected Yoga teachers, this is Shayna with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Schedulicity and Instagram work together in perfect harmony for your yoga business. You can connect your Instagram account with your Schedulicity business listing and automatically filter your images using a hashtag specific to your business. You can also connect your Schedulicity account with your Instagram business account to add a book button to your Instagram profile and posts. Catch the whims of your Instagram followers when they're the most inspired by your social media content. For more information, visit essentials.schedulicity.com or inquire at support@schedulicity.com. We'd love to help you get the most out of your online accounts.
Thank you so much, Team Schedulicity, for keeping our calendars organized, and also for any of you who currently use Schedulicity, or if you want to try it out, make sure to use our coupon code. It's CYT2 months. So that's for 2 months of free access, and we'll make sure to put this in the show notes as well. Capital letter CYT, as in Connected Yoga Teacher, 2, the number 2, and then months, MONTHS, all caps. CYT 2 months for 2 months of free access. And you can enter this code over at Schedulicity.com, and we always link to Schedulicity in our show notes. You can click on the image, the logo at the bottom of each and every show notes page. Okay, so as I said, Connected Yoga teachers, you can pause this podcast at any point and come back to it when you're looking for content ideas. I know what it feels like to get writing and just to get in the zone, so do not feel bad about pausing and coming back. So here are some questions that might inspire you to think of content to share. So look at step 2 first, your big why. If you are wanting students to sign up for, let's say, your next yoga offering, what can you tell them about it? Where is it happening? Can you share a photo or give a video tour of the space? What do people need to bring with them? Or what props do you have there ready for them? How do they sign up? What do they need to know before the class or workshop? What are some common questions that newbie students ask you when they go to sign up for something like this? And can you answer those in your content? Really get into how intimidating it can feel to go to a new place, to go sign up for a new class with complete strangers. And for some of you, those are online classes, so you might show your students what it's like when they join a Zoom class and what they can expect. Answer as many questions as you can. These are the questions and kind of unknowns that hold students back sometimes for signing up for something. Give all of the details of your offering in your next communication if you have not done this before. So remember, people need to be invited in order to sign up. Another question, are there any yoga resources that you are loving right now? Books, articles, props, videos. What would you say to a yoga student in person if you wanted to tell them about this really new and cool thing? And how can you do that then in your content? Make sure if you're sharing resources that someone else created, that you give them a shout out of thank you. If you're on social media, you can tag them. This helps to build your network, and it's just really nice to give a shout out to the creator of that content in whatever you're sharing. Another way to come up with content is to ask your students for questions. So this might be in class, on social media, or in an email. Wherever you are communicating with students or whenever they have questions that they come to you with or challenges that they're facing, how can you help them? But then jot that down in your content planning or your content creation spot in that journal, in that notebook, on Google Docs to use for future content ideas. So for example, let's say a yoga student comes to you at the beginning of a class and says, I just had a recent knee surgery, and so I'm wondering if you can show me some modifications of different poses. And you take them over to the side of the class and you show them some modifications. You say like, okay, when everyone else is coming into tabletop, you might choose this pose instead or do it with this variation. Or you might be doing that during the class. A lot of you are amazing at offering variations to your students while you're teaching. Those are great content ideas. That way, potential students can see that and say, oh, this person understands what it's like to not be able to do some traditional yoga poses where I'm on my knees. And this teacher really understands what it's like to take care of someone who has had knee surgery. Another question is, what holidays or days of awareness are coming up? Another one to think about as well is, why did you become a yoga teacher? What was your journey like? What was your first class like? Maybe your worst yoga class ever? What benefits do you gain from yoga? Tell your audience about your own experience with yoga, and make sure to also share the real life things like when you really don't feel like rolling out your mat and fitting your own practice in, or when you fall away from doing your own practice at home. What helps you? What do those challenges and struggles feel like for you? Another great thing to share is, what does self-care look like to you? And of course, you all probably know, if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, I want to know if your students know about your specialty or your niche. Do they know what you really love to teach? It doesn't mean that you have to say, I only teach to students who are tired parents feeling stressed out. You don't have to do that, but share lots of content for those tired, stressed out parents if that's your specialty or niche. What yoga poses, breath practices, meditation techniques, mantras, mudras, what parts of yoga do you love? Do you really dislike? Or what are the ones that help you with a specific struggle? And that might be that specialty or that niche struggle that your students are dealing with. And what do you hear people complaining about? It can be anyone, but also your students. Let's say a student walks in and says, oh my gosh, do you have something for my sore feet? I have been standing all day at work. Or, wow, it feels great to move. I've been sitting all day. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here in class. I might fall asleep because I didn't sleep well last night. Those are the complaints that we all have as humans living in bodies at some point. And so how can you address those and give solutions in your content? Maybe you also share a favorite recipe or life hack. A note on this: please be sure to not be giving nutritional advice if you are not a nutritionist who's trained in eating disorders. We have some podcasts where we cover this issue and why I truly believe that yoga teachers need to stop telling people what to eat. And this brings me to the next point. Can you share some content where you are not afraid to take a stand, like I just did in that whole statement? Some yoga teachers challenge or question me on things like my opinion on nutrition, and I'm okay with this. My content cannot be for every single yoga teacher out there. If yoga teachers want to tell me that they are not comfortable charging or making money with their offerings, they are probably not going to be listeners of this podcast. And that's okay. And I want you to really embrace that. We cannot teach yoga to every single human in the world. We want our yoga students to feel like our way of teaching is such a good fit for them. And this is what sets you apart from other teachers. Think of, the yoga student who might walk up towards you and say, "Oh, I'm looking for like a class with like pumping loud music where we dance around and really get our heart rate up." Is that your yoga class? Or is that someone else's yoga class? And you're like, "Ooh, I know a teacher who fits that, but that's not actually mine. I teach more of a restorative yoga." Do not be afraid to stand out. And in that, it's going to feel like you're saying no to some yoga students. But in that way, you are going to be saying yes to your core group of people who really connect with your offering. And make sure your content tells people so that they know, if they wanted that heart racing loud music class and they come to your content and they see that it's very mellow and it's all about restorative yoga, they're going to know right away. And that way you don't end up in that uncomfortable situation where they're coming to class and expecting something very different. Now, a lot of you have told me that you struggle with consistency, and I want to have a quick conversation about quality versus consistency. I believe that yoga teachers need to create consistent content to get to their best quality content. I believe this as we teach classes, we get better as yoga teachers the more we teach. We can't just create this like high quality class right off the bat the first time we start teaching. And the same is true for your content. So dive in. It might be a little uncomfortable at first. Remember step 1, where you're showing up to create the content. Nowhere along the way here have we said how often you're going to post. What I want you to do is work the muscle of creating the content and then see, okay, how much do I have here? Where am I posting it to? How am I sharing this? And now you should have lots of inspiration around what you could say in your content. 2 other things I want to mention. Can you cut your content up a little bit more than you expected so that you have more posts or more emails? So often I see yoga teachers sit down to write a piece of content, let's say it's an email, and it actually turns into what would be 4 emails. So can you split that up? And that way you can schedule the next 4 emails and they kind of all go together as well. And my last note here is, do you have at least 1 call to action for every 5 posts? Amanda Bond talked about this back in a previous episode. I'll make sure that we link to it in the show notes. Amanda Bond is a Facebook expert and also a yoga teacher, and she talked about the importance of this call to action. And your call to action might be more often, especially if you're sharing something and then you're telling people, come on over and join our Facebook group, or come on over and join my email list, or come and listen to this video or this audio that I created for everyone. Your call to action might be more often. Before I do a quick recap here and remind you about that call to action that I want you to make sure you have done today, I want to give a huge shout out to our entire team over here. Suzanne, who is our audio editor, Crunch, who is our show notes and article writer, Sinead, who's our community support manager, and Erica, our new VA, who is doing all kinds of things behind the scenes, especially with the website and our articles right now. And thank you to you, because you are still listening here all the way to the end. And I'm just so grateful, because I know that you have a lot of things to do and a lot of ways that you could be spending your time. So thank you so much for making this investment into your content strategy. And remember, your only action step today is to write down how you're going to share your content. All of the other stuff was bonus. Choose either video, audio, text, images, or a couple of those that go together nicely. And add this to step 1, 2, 3, so that you can really have this visual at a glance. Step 1, when you're going to be creating your content. Step 2, why you're doing this. Step 3, where you're sharing your content. And now step 4, how you're going to deliver this. And then we'll meet back here next week for our last and final step 5. That's our plan, where we share, schedule, and repurpose our content. And if you have any questions or if you want to share your wins, please don't hesitate to leave a voice message. That's on our website at theconnectedyogateacher.com or post in the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. And as I sign off, I want to know what you will be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up. Then jot that down as a content idea. See, your content is everywhere once you start looking for it.